It is a truth, universally acknowledged, that a single man in possession of good fortune must be in want of a wife.
Come, Lizzie. Mamma is in a tizzy over some man moving to Netherfield Park.
He must be in want of a wife.
Mrs. Phillips was just telling me that Netherfield is taken by a young man of large fortune from the north of England. His name is Bingley, and my dear, he is single. A fine thing for our girls.
How so? How can it affect them?
Oh, my dear Mr. Bennet, how can you be so tiresome? You must know I am thinking of his marrying one of them. It is very likely he will fall in love with one of them, and therefore you must visit him as soon as you can.
I see no occasion for that. I shall send a few lines by you to assure him of my hearty consent with marrying whichever girl he chooses. I must earn a good word for my little Lizzie.
Lizzie is not a bit better than the others. Oh, she is not half so handsome as Jane, nor so good-humored as Lydia or Kitty. Why, even Mary can. She can play the pianoforte better than she.
They have none of them much to recommend them.
Oh, Mr. Bennet, how can you abuse your own children in such a way? You have no compassion for my poor nerve.
I have a high respect for your nerve. They're my old friends. I've heard you mention them. Consideration these last 20 years, at least.
Oh, you do not know what I suffer. Well, quit coughing so, Kitty, for heaven's sake. I do not cough for my own amusement.
Do you think Mr. Bingley would be handsome? Surely there are more important features to a man than his looks. Indeed, like his fortune.
Let us wait, and let Mr. Bingley reveal himself in due time.
Oh, he will never reveal himself at all. Quit talking of the matter. I am sick of Mr. Bingley.
Why did you not tell me so before? If I had known as much this morning, I certainly would have not called on him.
Not around Mr. Bingley.
Lydia, my love, though you are the youngest, I dare say Mr. Bingley will dance with you at the next ball.
I am not afraid, for though I'm the youngest, I am the tallest.
Do you think anything will come of Mr. Bingley's arrival?
It is too early to know, but he will be the biggest ninny in all of England if he does not find you the prettiest lady present.
Now, girls, you cannot catch any men if you stand here forever. Go, girls, dance.
Very glad to make your acquaintance. And you are?
Charles Bingley. It is a pleasure to meet you. This is my delightful sister, Caroline Bingley. And this is my good friend, Mr. Darcy. We are ever so pleased to see such a friendly gathering.
Thank you for your kind words. Allow me to introduce my daughter, Charlotte, a kinder soul you will not meet.
How do you do, Matt?
Fine, thank you. Oh! I am terribly sorry, my good sir. Oh!
It is hardly a problem. Why, with the dance floor this crowded, it could have happened to anyone.
Mr. Bingley, this is Mrs. Bennet of Longbourn.
Ever so pleased, Mr. Bingley. You simply must meet my daughters. Lydia and Kitty are somewhere on the dance floor, and so is Mary, though you needn't bother with her, and here is Elizabeth now.
Hello.
Oh, and of course there's my eldest daughter, my darling Jane. Jane, dear, come over here. Perhaps she would like to dance.
Oh, perhaps she would like to dance.
I can guess the subject of your reverie. You are considering how insupportable it would be to pass many evenings in this manner, in such society. And indeed, I am quite of your opinion. I was never more annoyed.
Charles seems to be enjoying himself.
Oh, yes, with that Bennet girl. I hardly expect anything to come of it. Can you imagine having that woman as your mother-in-law? Why, she would never leave Netherfield.
Come, Darcy. I must have you dance. I hate to see you standing here in such a stupid manner. What's it like to dance?
I certainly shall not. Your sister is engaged, and there's not another woman in this room who would not be a punishment to stand up with.
Upon my honor, never have I seen so many pleasant ladies in one room.
You are dancing with the only handsome girl in the room.
Oh, isn't she just such a creature? But she has a sister who's very agreeable, sitting just behind me. Shall I have my partner introduce you?
Which do you mean? She is tolerable, but not handsome enough to tempt you. You had better return to your partner and enjoy her smiles, for you're wasting your time with me.
Oh, Lizzie.
Fear not, Charlotte, for he's such a disagreeable man that it'd be quite a misfortune to be liked by him. He's just what a young man ought to be. Sensible, good-humored, lively. I never saw such happy manners. He is also handsome, which young men ought to be if he possibly can. Therefore, his character is complete. I was very much flattered by his asking me to dance a second time. I never expected such a compliment. You did not? I did for you. Compliments always take you by surprise, and me, never. He could not help telling that you were about as 5 times as pretty as any other woman in that room. Dear Lizzie. I give you leave to like him. You've liked much a stupider person. All the world is good and agreeable in your eyes.
I always see it, I think. Did you have a good evening, Charlotte? Oh, you were second to dance with Mr. Bingley?
Yes, but he seems to prefer his first partner.
Oh, yes! He danced with Jane twice. To be sure, that did seem as if he admired her.
I overheard Mr. Robinson ask him who he thought the prettiest. He immediately answered, "Oh, the eldest Miss Bennet." Without a doubt.
Upon my word, that was very decided indeed.
My overhearing was more to the point than yours, Eliza. Mr. Darcy is not so well worth listening to as his friend, is he? Poor Lizzie.
He is such a disagreeable man. I heard he sat next to Mrs. Long for half an hour without once opening his lips.
Miss Bingley told me he never speaks much unless among his intimate acquaintances. I do not mind his silent manner, but I wish he had danced with Eliza.
Ugh! He is ate up with pride, and I would never dance with him. If I were you.
I believe I may safely promise never to dance with that man.
He is a fine young man with family, fortune, everything in his favor. He has a right to be proud.
That is very true, and I could forgive his pride if he had not mortified mine.
Pride is a very common failing, I believe. Human nature is particularly prone to it, and there are very few of us who do not cherish a feeling of self-complacency on the score of some quality or other, real or imaginary. Pride and vanity are two different things, but the words are often used synonymously. Pride relates to opinion of ourselves, vanity to what we would have others think of us.
I hope the officers will be arriving soon.
Lizzie, does Jane like Mr. Bingley?
Of course she does.
Then you had better encourage her to show it. If a woman conceals her affection with the same skill from the object of it, she may lose the opportunity of fixing him. A woman had better show more affection than she feels.
But she helps him on as much as her nature will allow.
But he does not know Jane's disposition as you do.
But if a woman is partial to a man and does not endeavor to conceal it, he must find it out.
Perhaps if he sees another her. But Jane should make the most of every half hour in which she can command his attention. Once she is secure of him, there will be leisure for falling in love as much as she chooses.
Do not linger on it, Charlotte. All will be well. A letter just arrived inviting me to dine at Netherfield. See, as I surmised. Can I take the carriage?
No, no, my dear. You must go on horseback. It seems very likely to rain, and then you must stay all night.
A letter for Miss Elizabeth?
Hark! A letter from Jane! My dearest Lizzie, I find myself very unwell this morning. I suppose it is to be imputed to my getting wet through yesterday. Oh, my kind friends will not hear of me returning home until I am better. It is better than I had hoped.
I shall go and see Jane, which is all I want.
Let us call a horse for you, daughter. It's rather wet from the rain.
It is a fine day, and I do not plan on standing by while my sister is sick.
Your sister is in the other room.
Did you see her skirts?
6 inches embedded with mud. I believe it to be a country town indifference to decorum.
It shows an affection for her sister that is very agreeable.
Her family situation, having few connections and no money, block her hopes of ever making a good match. And you can't disagree with me on that.
Excuse me, my sister needed rest, so I shall entertain myself here.
My dear Elizabeth, you would rather read a book than play cards.
Miss Elizabeth here is a great reader, and a rather accomplished young woman. It amazes me how young ladies can have so much patience to be so very accomplished as they are.
I am very far from agreeing with you in your estimation of ladies in general.
Then you must consider a great deal in your idea of an accomplished woman.
Oh, I do. A woman must have thorough knowledge in music, singing, drawing, dancing, and of the modern language. Besides this, she must possess a certain something in her air and a manner of walking, tone of voice, address, and expression.
Mr. Darcy, I assure you that your idea of what makes a woman accomplished are entirely unrealistic.
I could be that accomplished, Darcy.
This may be a long trip.
Come along now, girls. I am sure Jane and Lizzie will be delighted to have us visit. Good afternoon. It seems as if your sickness is not alarming in the least. Now, Jane, dear, do not feel as if you're in a hurry to recover, as I am in no hurry to be removed from Netherfield.
I really would prefer to be taken home, and Mother, they've already been so kind to me. I would not like to...
Oh, my poor sick! Oh, Mr. Bingley, I fear she is in no condition to be moved at all.
Oh, feel no rush. She is welcome to stay here as long as is needed.
Oh, yes. Miss Bennet shall receive every possible attention while she remains with us.
Mr. Bingley, you are simply too kind to host Jane in this wonderful house.
Oh, it is hardly a problem.
Such a waste of so much marvelous space.
Oh, I wouldn't say it's
Have
so
you ever
much...
thought of hosting a ball?
Well, as a matter of fact, the
You
other...
don't mean it, do you? Why, I think it'd be simply marvelous if you did.
Now, hold on just one
Oh,
moment.
you are just wonderful. Thank you for agreeing to host.
I am perfectly ready to keep my engagement. And when your sister is better, you shall name the very day of the ball.
Yes, it would be better to wait until Jane is well.
I'm going to go look after your sister now.
Oh, yes, she must stay at least one more day.
Oh yes, at least one.
What are you writing?
I'm writing to my sister.
Pray, tell her that I long to see her.
I have already told her once, by your desire.
You write uncommonly fast.
You are mistaken. I write rather slowly.
You must write so many letters in the course of a year.
It is fortunate, then, that they fall to my lot instead of yours.
My dear Elizabeth, let me persuade you to follow my example and take a turn about the room.
Oh, yes, of course.
Would you care to join us, Mr. Darcy?
No, for I can imagine two motives for your choosing to walk about the room together, and either of which motive my joining would interfere.
What could he mean? Do tell us, Darcy.
You either choose this method of passing because you have secret affairs to discuss, or that you are conscious that your figure appears to the greatest advantage in walking. If the first, I should be completely in your way. And if the second, I can admire you much better as I sit here.
Shocking! How shall we punish him for such a speech?
I believe the best way would be to laugh at him and tease him.
Oh, I could never.
Oh, Mr. Darcy is not to be laughed at? That is an uncommon advantage.
Miss Bennet has given me credit for more than can be. The wisest of man may be rendered an idiot by a person whose first object in life is a joke.
I am not one of those people. I never ridicule what is good and wise. But these are precisely what you are without. You are full of such things as vanity and pride.
It is the study of my life to avoid such weaknesses. Vanity is a weakness indeed, but pride, where there's a real superiority of the mind, pride will always be under good regulation.
Your examination of Mr. Darcy is over. Pray, what is the result?
I am perfectly certain Mr. Darcy has no defect.
No, I have made no such presentation. I have faults enough, but not those of understanding. I have a temper, and I cannot so soon forgive the follies and vices of others as soon as I ought. My good opinion once lost is lost forever.
That is a failing indeed. But you have chosen your fault well. I really cannot laugh at it.
Everyone has a natural defect, which not even the best of education can overcome.
Your defect is propensity to hate everybody.
And yours is to willfully misunderstand them.
Do let us have a little music.
Very well.
Very well.
What is going on?
We have a guest coming to dinner. A very boring, ugly man.
We've never seen him before, Lydia. He is likely well kept, as he is a clergyman.
I have not a care for his looks, as I have eyes only for officers.
The man visitor is our cousin, Mr. Collins.
And when father dies, he may turn all out of the house as soon as he pleases.
Father, is this true?
Yes, my dear. I received a letter from Mr. Collins a month ago. He has offered in Old Branch and is visiting for dinner.
Pray, do not talk of that odious man. I hate to hear of him.
I don't mind hearing of him. The Reverend Mr. Collins.
Mr. and Mrs. Bennet, and Miss 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 Bennet. I have a tale of your beauty, though in this case, fame falls short of reality. I have no doubt that they will all be married in good time.
You are very kind, sir, and I wish with all my heart it may prove so, for else they will be destitute enough.
You allude, perhaps, to the entailment of this estate.
It's a grievous affair to my poor girls, you must confess. Not that I mean to find fault with you, for all things are such chances of this world.
I am well aware of the hardship to my fair cousins. My honoured patroness, the Lady Catherine de Bourgh, takes a great deal of interest in my affairs. Thus I can assure the young ladies, I come prepared to admire them.
I believe some of us desire more to be admired than others.
Please, Mr. Collins, we have a seat for you. My, what excellent boiled potatoes!
Never in my life have I tasted such an exemplary vegetable. To which of my cousins does the excellence of this cooking owe?
We are perfectly able to keep a cook.
Madam, I am most dreadfully sorry. I apologize. I did not mean to infer such a notion.
Mr. Collins, does Lady Catherine...
Does the Lady Catherine de Bourgh?
Does the Lady Catherine de Bourgh have any family?
I am so honored you would ask. She has but one daughter, the heiress of Rosings. However, she is of a sickly constitution that prevents her from making progress in accomplishments.
Ah, how unfortunate. My girls may not be set up to inherit such a fortune, but their merits make them richer than gold.
Upon that matter, I mean to speak to you, madam. My patroness has suggested I find a wife, and I turn to Longbourn to seek a wife from among your daughters. I believe that the eldest, Miss Bennet, appears to be complacent and beautiful, and would please the Lady Catherine entirely.
While it is wise to seek a wife from my daughters, I'm afraid the eldest is very soon to be engaged.
Oh, I apologize.
No, might I recommend my second daughter, Elizabeth? She is equal to her sister in birth and beauty.
Elizabeth. She'll do. After supper, I hope you will join me in the drawing room, where I may regale you with my book of sermons.
Sermons? How long would that take?
Only about 3 hours, but the wisdom bestowed would be enough to make the session worth the entire estate.
3 hours?!
I am glad Father consented we go to Meryton. It was for the officers to be certain. Father knows we will be wed to one. If you act enough like a damsel, I am sure they will notice you.
Oh, Colonel Williams, I haven't a clue which ribbon is best.
Imagine, you see him across the way. You lock eyes. He would be remiss to not introduce himself.
Officers are best at rescuing. 'Tis in the blood.
You two are the fluffiest fools that ever I met. You would do much better to read a book.
Poor Mary. She will never find a husband. Alone as an old maid forever.
You ought to listen to us.
When I meet my husband, my devotion to him shall not be dependent on his profession, but his character. An officer will not be so forever, but his character will remain.
La, you are the dullest sort, my dear Mary. I can hardly believe we are related. Hark! There's Mr. Wickham! Hello! Oh, my dear Wickham! How wonderful it is for us to meet once more.
Indeed, I was just thinking to myself how this day was so fine that only your company could provide greater beauty.
Oh, Mr. Wickham, you know how to flatter a lady.
Would you walk us into town, dear Wickham?
It would honor me greatly, though I must be introduced to the rest of your party.
This is my dear Jane and Lizzie. And this is Mary, though you need not bother with her. Lydia, there's Colonel Forster. Come, come.
I am very pleased to make your acquaintance. I have heard a great deal about you.
I hope for both our sakes, Lydia did not bestow on you an exact account of all that she takes us to be.
The characters she painted did not leave me doubting for a second that you both are respectable, accomplished, and dare I say, beautiful ladies.
That is terribly kind of you, Mr. Wickham. Whatever is the matter with Mr. Darcy?
You know him.
We are acquaintances, though I find his manners very disagreeable.
He and I are not on friendly terms, though I should not speak on the matter.
Then don't.
Thank you. A military life was not what I was intended for. The church ought to have been my profession. The late Mr. Darcy bequeathed to me a fine rectory. He was my godfather, and exceedingly attached to me. He meant to provide for me amply, but the living was given elsewhere.
How could his will be so disregarded?
Our Mr. Darcy chose to doubt it. I did nothing to deserve losing it, except that his father was uncommonly attached to me. I fear it was jealousy.
He deserves to be publicly disgraced.
I could not expose him in remembrance of his father.
Nothing but his pride could be the motive.
Almost all his actions may be traced to pride. And pride has often been his best friend. He is very proud of what his father was. His brotherly pride makes him a kind and careful guardian of his sister. But he cannot bestow the same grace to one raised like a brother.
What sort of girl is Miss Darcy?
She is like her brother, very proud. As a child, she was fond of me, and I devoted hours to her amusements. But now, she is handsome, highly accomplished, but does not care for me. I fear her brother's influence has extended there.
Oh, poor Mr. Wickham. I'm sorry you had to deal with such hardships.
I have borne it the best I could.
Oh, Mr. Wickham! Will you be at the Netherfield Ball?
A ball?
This coming Saturday. Every officer is invited. Mr. Bingley and Miss Bingley play host. Though, we'll have to endure the presence of pompous Mr. Darcy.
You may count on my being there.
You will go despite Mr. Darcy's presence?
It is not for me to be driven away by Darcy. If he wishes to avoid seeing me, he must go.
That is very enviable indeed.
Tell me again why you felt it necessary to hold a ball for such a group of ruffians.
They are nothing of the sort, my dear Caroline. Why, I am more than happy to provide an evening of fresh entertainment for our fine guests.
Here comes the majority of the entertainment.
Mrs. Wickham, thank you for gracing my ball with your presence.
Oh, certainly. The pleasure is all ours. My Jane looks quite well tonight, does she not?
Yes. I should hope she should do me the honor of the first dance.
I will always be honored, Mr. Bingley. I don't see Mr. Wickham. Is he here? Let me ask. Perhaps he has not arrived yet.
Miss Bennet, I hope to remain quite close to you tonight, if I may be so bold.
There's Mr. Brentwick. Perhaps I can persuade him to sit down. Yes, go! But don't cough. And don't trip in your curtsy. And don't bring up his glass eye. I can't keep up with all those. Just come with me.
Madam?
Mr. Collins! I believe firmly that I am not the one you want to be close with tonight.
Who is this, dear Lizzie?
Oh, thank goodness. Charlotte, this is my cousin, Mr. Collins.
These people are practically vicious. I cannot fathom why Charles decided this was a good idea.
I admit, I did not expect this amount of chaos.
Mr. Wickham is not here. Lydia says he was obliged to go into town on business, though it might not have called him away for so long except for a certain gentleman's presence.
Then it is because of Mr. Darcy.
Madam, may I claim your hand for the next dance?
Oh, yes!
Did I just agree to dance with Mr. Darcy?
I believe you did, and you had better behave yourself, despite your disliking of...
This is one of my favorite dances. It's now your turn to say something, Mr. Darcy.
Then tell me what is to be said.
That reply will do for the present. Perhaps by and by I may observe that private balls are much pleasanter than public ones. But we may be silent for now.
Do you talk by rule then, when you are dancing?
Sometimes. One must speak a little, you know. It would be odd to be entirely silent for half an hour together.
Do you and your sisters often walk to Meryton?
Yes! And when we had met you there, we had just been forming a new acquaintance.
Mr. Wickham is blessed with such happy manners as to ensure his making friends. Whether he is equally as capable of retaining them is less certain.
He has been so unlucky as to lose your friendship, and in a manner which he is likely to suffer from all his life.
I would not like to speak on the matter.
I remember hearing you once say, Mr. Darcy, that you hardly ever forgave, that your resentment once created was unappeasable. You must be very cautious, I suppose, as to its being created.
I am.
And never allow yourself to be blinded by prejudice.
I hope not.
It is particularly important for those who never forgive to be secure of judging properly first.
May I ask to what these questions tend?
Merely to the illustration of your character. I'm trying to make it out.
And what is your success?
I do not get on at all. I hear such differing accounts as to puzzle me exceedingly.
I could wish, Miss Bennet, that you were not to sketch my character at the present moment.
That's will do extremely well, child. You've delighted us long enough. Let the other young ladies have time to exhibit.
But Father, I practiced.
I know, my dear, but not many appreciate careful practice. There are others full of talent.
Why did I come in? To embarrass everyone.
Mary!
That was Mr. Darcy, wasn't it? That's the Lady Catherine's nephew. I must go greet him.
No, Mr. Darcy will find you in prejudice! At least Jane seems to be perfectly happy.
please have a private audience with your daughter Elizabeth?
Oh, dear! Yes! Yes! Oh, I am sure Lizzie will be very happy. I am sure she can have no objections. Come along, girls. Upstairs.
No, Mother, please do not go. I beg you all not to go. Mr. Collins can have nothing to say to me that any of you need not hear.
I'm sorry, dear Lizzie. You must fight alone today.
My dear Miss Elizabeth, almost as soon as I arrived, I singled you out as the companion of my future. My reasons for marrying are thus. Firstly, I think it will add very greatly to my happiness. Secondly, I think it right for any clergyman in easy circumstance to set the example of matrimony in his parish. Thirdly, which I ought to have mentioned earlier, that it is the advice and recommendation of the great lady whom I call patroness. As she suggested, I find a wife, and I turn to Longbourn, as I am to inherit the estate after the death of your esteemed father. If I were to choose a wife from among his daughters, the loss would be as minimal as possible. This has been my motive, my fair cousin. I think it very right for cousins to marry, to keep the bloodline strong. I care not for fame and fortune, and shall provide well for you when we are married.
You are too hasty, sir. You forget that I have made no reply. Allow me to do so without further loss of time, except my thanks for the compliments you are bestowing me. But it is impossible for me to do otherwise than to decline them.
Mind you understand that it is customary of young ladies to reject the advances of a man they mean to accept.
I do assure you that I am not one of those young ladies, if such young ladies there are. I am perfectly certain of my refusal. You could not make me happy, and I am convinced that I am the last woman in the world who can make you so.
When I do myself the honor of speaking to you next on this subject, I hope to receive a more favorable answer than which you have given me.
If what I have hitherto said to you can appear to you in the form of encouragement, I know not how to express my refusal in such a way as to convince you of its being one.
Oh, Mr. Collins, depend upon it that Lizzie will be brought to reason.
I will not.
I knew not whether she would be a good wife for a man in my circumstance. Good day to you all.
He's kidding me.
Whatever happened to poor Mr. Collins?
Mr. Collins proposed to Lizzie.
Lizzie said she will not have Mr. Collins. And now Mr. Collins begins to say that he will not have Lizzie. You must do something about it.
It seems a hopeless business.
Speak to Lizzie yourself about it. Tell her you insist upon her marrying him.
Lizzie, come here. You have refused Mr. Collins' offer of marriage, and your mother insists you accept it.
Yes, or I will never see her again.
An unhappy alternative lies before you, Elizabeth. From this day on, you must be a stranger to one of your parents. Your mother will never see you again if you do not marry Mr. Collins, and I shall never see you again if you do.
Miss Jane.
Oh, Mr. Collins, please forgive us for our daughter's harsh refusal.
Consider it forgiven, madam. For upon my departure, I happened upon Miss Charlotte Lucas, and after a brief discussion, she has agreed to be my wife.
I see what you are feeling. You must be surprised after his wishing to marry you. I hope that over time you will be satisfied with what I have done. I'm not a romantic, you know. I never was. I only ask for a comfortable home. And considering Mr. Collins' connections, character, and situation, I believe my chance of happiness with him is as fair as most people can boast upon.
Oh, Charlotte, I only wish for your happiness, though I am not as certain as you that Mr. Collins can provide it.
Worry not, dear Lizzie. I only ask that you visit me when I live away in Rosie.
Of course I will.
Oh, whatever's the matter, dear Jane?
It is a letter from Caroline Bingley. The entire party has left Netherfield for London. It is clear he intends not to come back, at least through the winter. But how will you become engaged if Mr. Bingley's all the way in London?
That is exactly the problem, Kitty.
Oh. What think you, Mother?
Well, if Mr. Bingley cannot come to you, you must go to him. Make preparations, my dear. You are going to London.
Does this mean he is entirely indifferent to me?
Impossible. Miss Bingley hopes to keep him in town to persuade you that he does not care about you.
Can I be happy in accepting a man whose sister and friends are all wishing him to marry elsewhere?
You must figure that out for yourself. Follow him to London, as Mamma has said. The rest will work out.
Elizabeth, you are most welcome here.
Oh, Charlotte, you're very own home.
It is my utmost delight to have a home to call my own and to serve my husband diligently.
Ah, Miss Bennet. You look well, and is not my wife.
Yes, thank you, dear. Lizzie, William can take your things. I should like to speak to you in the living room. It is my space, and we shan't be disturbed.
Ah, yes, it is very good for a wife to have her own space. After you are done, we might tour the grounds, and there you may make the acquaintance of the Lady Catherine de Bourgh.
Yes, thank you, dear.
Best leave it to you, then.
Now, tell me how your sister fares.
Not well. I visited her before arriving here, as she is staying with my aunt and uncle. She has not seen Mr. Bingley since arriving, but she has visited and met with Caroline Bingley.
Do you think she is preventing Jane from seeing him?
Can be assumed. Jane is in good spirits despite it all. She is beginning to say, it does not matter.
Poor Jane. And poor you, it must hurt you to see her that way.
It does. But my aunt cheered me by asking me on a tour of the lakes. They shall come and retrieve me after my visit here.
We will be happy to have them.
Elizabeth! Charlotte! The Lady Catherine de Bourgh has requested our presence at dinner. Elizabeth, you are a very lucky woman to be meeting the Lady Catherine. Come, quick, we must not keep her waiting. What a marvelous supper, Lady Catherine. You do procure the most marvelous meals.
Yes, dear, you have said that 3 times already.
No, I've said it 5 times already.
I take great pride in my knowledge of the world. It appears nowadays that people know less and less of the peculiarities which I have mastered. I consider myself a well of wisdom.
It is most true, Lady Catherine.
Presenting Mr. Darcy.
I hope I do not infringe upon your party.
My dearest nephew, you are always welcome here. I'm sure my dear daughter delights in your company.
Yes, ma'am.
Always a pleasure.
Miss Elizabeth, come hither. You have 4 sisters, correct? Are any of them likely to be married? No? What a shame. Your father's estate is entitled to Mr. Collins, I think. I see no occasion for entailing estates from the female line. Are any of your younger sisters out, Miss Bennet?
Yes, ma'am, all.
All? What? All 5? Out at once? Very odd. And you only second? Your younger sisters must be very young.
Yes, my youngest is not yet 16. But really, madam, I think it would be very hard upon younger sisters that they do not have their share of society and amusement, because the elder may not have the means to marry early.
Upon my word, you give your opinions very decidedly for so young a person. Pray, do you play and sing?
A little.
Then I entreat upon you to play for us.
I am certainly not good enough to play for the likes of you.
Go play now.
You mean to frighten me, Mr. Darcy, by coming all estate to hear me play?
I shall not say you're mistaken. I've had the pleasure of your acquaintance long enough to know that you find great enjoyment in occasionally professing opinions that are not your own.
Are you all acquainted with my cousin? Pray, how does he in society? I haven't had the opportunity to see him in public myself.
Certainly, madam. But prepare yourself for something dreadful. On the first night of me ever seeing him, we were at a ball, and he only danced 4 dances. Though gentlemen were scarce, and more than one young lady was sitting down in want of partner.
I had not at that time had the honor of knowing any lady in the assembly beyond my own party.
And no one can ever be introduced in a ballroom.
I am ill qualified to recommend myself to strangers. I have not the talent which some people possess in conversing with those I've never seen before.
I'm not proficient in the piano,
come back to me now. Miss Bennet, that will do for the present. I must have my share in the conversation. Miss Bennet, come. You appear to know my nephew rather well. Do you think him a good-natured sort?
I have not known him long enough to be completely sure of his character.
He is an upstanding man of good breeding, and he cares very deeply for what is right. Why, I heard it was just this past summer that he saved a very dear friend from a most imprudent marriage.
Madam, what friend?
I believe it was that young Mr. Bingley. Yes, there were very strong objections against the lady. I am proud of my dear nephew for upholding the right ways of the world.
If you will excuse me, madam, I fear I have a terrible headache coming about.
I had heard that you were suffering from some ailment. I came with as much haste as possible in hopes of hearing of your good health.
I suppose I am grateful for your concern, though I'm in perfect condition, aside from an aching head. Will you sit?
In vain I have struggled. It will not do. You must allow me to tell you how ardently I admire and love you. In spite of those arrogant airs you so often put up when you were in my presence, I cannot help but be enamored by the thought of your embrace. And while I have taken no liking to any of your relations, I feel so strongly for you that reason can no longer dissuade me. It is completely outside of my character to feel this way, and try as I might, I cannot make sense of these strange admirations. I am, of course, anxious to hear what you think of me after hearing me ramble on for my love for you like a fool, but I feel an obligation of the heart to ask for your hand.
In such cases as this, it is, I suppose, the established mode to express a sense of obligation for the sentiments avowed. But I cannot. I have never desired your good opinion, and you have certainly bestowed it most unwillingly. I am sorry to have occasioned pain to anyone. It has most unconsciously been done, and I hope it will be of short duration.
And this is the reply that I have the honor of expecting? I might perhaps ask why, with such little endeavor at civility, I am thus rejected?
And I might as well inquire, with so evident an air of offending and insulting me, you choose to tell me that you liked me against your will, your reason, and even your character? Was this not some excuse for incivility, if indeed I was uncivil? But I have other provocations. Do you think any consideration would tempt me to accept the man who has been the means of ruin, perhaps forever, the happiness of my most beloved sister? I have every reason in the world to think ill of you. Can you deny that you have done it?
I have no wish of denying that I did everything in my power to separate my friend from your sister. To him I have been kinder than to myself.
But it is not merely on this affair which my dislike is founded. Long before it had taken place, my opinion of you was decided on the recital which I received many months ago from Mr. Wickham. On this affair, what can you have to say?
You take an eager interest into that man's concern.
And who can help having an interest, knowing what his misfortunes have been?
His misfortunes. Yes, his misfortunes have been grave indeed.
And of your infliction, you have reduced him to his present authority, and you have withheld the advantages which you must have known to have been bestowed upon him.
And this is your opinion of me. This is the estimation of which you hold me. I thank you for explaining it so fully. My faults, according to this calculation, are heavy indeed. But perhaps these offenses might have been overlooked had not your pride been hurt by the honest confessions of the scruples that have long prevented my forming any serious design. Did you expect me to rejoice in the inferiority of your connections? To congratulate myself in the hope of relations on whose condition in life is so decidedly beneath my own?
You are mistaken, Mr. Darcy. If you suppose that the mode of your declaration affected me in any other way, but by sparing me the concern which I might have felt had you behaved in a more gentlemanly manner. From the first moment of my acquaintance with you, your manners bestowing me with the fullest belief of your arrogance, your conceit, and your selfish disdain for the feelings of others, convinced me that you are the last man in the world whom I could ever be prevailed upon to marry.
That is enough, madam. I comprehend your feelings perfectly, and have only to be ashamed of what my own have been. Forgive me for having taken up so much of your time, and accept my best wishes for your health and happiness. Will you do the honor of reading this letter?
Be not alarmed, madam. On receiving this letter by the renewal of these offers, which were last night so disgusting to you, I write without any intention of humbling myself.
2 offenses of different nature were last night laid to my charge, from the severity of the blame which was last night so liberally bestowed. I hope to be in future secure when the following accounts of my actions and their motives have been read.
I had not been long in Hertfordshire when I realized that Darcy preferred your eldest sibling. At the ball, I was first made acquainted that Bingley's attentions to your sister had given rise to a general expectation of their marriage.
From that moment, I beheld your sister. Her look and manners were cheerful and engaging as ever, but without any symptom of peculiar regard. If you have not been mistaken here, I must have been in error. You have a superior knowledge of your sister.
What passed that evening led me to preserve my friend from what I esteem to be an unhappy connection. I am truly sorry for any pain that I have inflicted. In regards to that other, more weighty accusation about Mr. Wickham, I can refute it only by laying before you the whole of his connection to my family.
Mr. Wickham is the son of a very respectable man who, for many years, had the management of all the Pemberley estates, and whose good conduct inclined my father to be of service to him. That kindness was bestowed also upon George Wickham.
My excellent father died about 5 years ago. His will recommended Mr. Wickham's advancement, and, if he took orders, that a valuable family living might be his. There was also a legacy of £1,000.
Mr. Wickham wrote to inform me that he had resolved against taking orders, and hoped I should not think it unreasonable for him to expect some more immediate pecuniary advantage. He resigned all claim to assistance in the church, and accepted in return £3,000. All connection between us had seemed now dissolved.
I must now mention a circumstance which I wish to forget myself. My sister, who is more than 10 years my junior, was left to my guardianship.
Last summer, she was sent to an establishment in London with the lady who presided over it, and thither went Mr. Wickham. He so far recommended himself himself to Georgiana, whose affectionate heart retained a strong impression of his kindness towards her as a child, that she was persuaded to believe herself in love and consent to an elopement.
I wrote to Mr. Wickham, who left that place immediately. Mr. Wickham's chief object was unquestionably my sister's fortune, which was £30,000. She was but 15.
Last night, I was not then master enough of myself to know what could or ought to be revealed. I beg of you not to let your opponents and me make my assertions valueless. I will only add, God bless you. Fitzwilliam Darcy.
Elizabeth, your aunt and uncle are here for your holiday.
Oh, Lizzie, it is wonderful to see you.
We have so looked forward to a visit to Derbyshire. Your aunt has arranged for us to tour the Pemberley estate tomorrow.
Pemberley? Is that not where Mr. Darcy lives? Then this shall be a very interesting trip indeed.
Good afternoon. Might we bother you with a tour of Pemberley?
Why, of course. Come in.
Is your master at home?
Indeed not. But we expect him tomorrow. Yes! There is not one of his tenants or servants who won't give him a good name. Some people say he's proud, but I'm sure I've never seen anything of it. Why, I've known him since he was 4, and not a cross word have I heard him utter.
Oh, what a wonderful master. And what a beautiful house.
Indeed it is.
Good afternoon, Miss Elizabeth. You look well.
Yes, thank you. What a lovely home you have. Why are you here?
My business called me home early.
How unexpected. Oh, this is Mr. and Mrs. Gardner, my dear uncle and aunt.
Delighted to make your acquaintance. Will you allow me to introduce my sister?
Hi, I'm Georgiana. It's so nice to meet you.
I have heard many speak highly of you.
Oh, I don't deserve your praise. You're very kind. An urgent letter has arrived from the town, from Miss Elizabeth. Miss Elizabeth is very beautiful. Do you not agree? Her eyes are very fine.
Miss Elizabeth's eyes are much like anyone else's.
But you stare at hers more intensely, Oh, poor Fitzwilliam.
Oh, where is my uncle? I beg your pardon, but I must leave you.
My goodness, what is the matter? You look unwell. May I get you something?
No. Jane wrote to say that Lydia has run away with Wickham. She was visiting Brighton with the Forsters, and they must have met there. They are now somewhere in Scotland, and yet to be found. And there is no hope of his marrying her. Knowing his character.
I am grieved indeed.
I beg your pardon, but we must leave at once. I will see if I can find Lydia in Scotland. Elizabeth, you must go home.
Goodbye, Georgiana. Goodbye, Mr. Darcy. Has anything been heard of them?
Not yet.
It's you. How are you? You look so pale. How much you must have gone through.
I am perfectly well. Since mother, you must worry.
No! No! Lydia! How dreadful it all is! Oh, poor dear Lydia has no one to care about!
king! Mr. Bennet has gone away. No, I know he will fight Mr. Wickham. Oh, he will be killed. And what is to become of us all? The Collinses will turn us out.
Do not give way to such useless alarm. It is right to be prepared for the worst, but there is no occasion to look on it as certain.
Mr. Bennet must make them merry, and as for the wedding clothes, do not let them wait for that, but tell Lydia she shall have as much money as she chooses for after they are married.
I hardly expect that to matter.
This is a most unfortunate affair, and it will probably be much talked of. Unhappy as the event must be for Lydia, we may draw from it this useful lesson, that the loss of virtue in a female is irretrievable, that one false step involves her in endless ruin.
What dear Lydia will never be returned to me.
Hello, Mama! I hope my husband is quite welcome here.
Husband?
Yes! My dear Mr. Wickham, which makes me Mrs. George Wickham.
Why, my daughter, I'm married at 16. Oh, Lydia, what a merry time this is.
I thought no one in the town would know it, and we overtook some girls in town, so I took off my glove that they might see the ring, and I bowed and smiled like anything.
Oh, what about the wedding clothes? The wedding clothes?
Father, how is this possible?
It took an agreement to £5,000, but it is done.
But surely neither you nor Mr. Gardner had the money to spare.
And what do you all think of my husband? Is not he a charming man? I am sure all my sisters must envy me. They must all go to Brighton. That is the place to get husbands. I could get you all a good husband before the winter is over. I thank you for my share of the favor, but I do not particularly like the way of you getting husbands.
Why did you not invite me to the wedding?
It all happened so fast. When Uncle came to settle quickly after. We were meant to be there by 11 o'clock, but Uncle was pulled away on some business at 10. We were in great anxiety, for if he never returned, who could give me away? I realized later that if he had been prevented from going, the wedding need not be off, as Mr. Darcy might give me away just as well. Mr. Darcy? Oh, yes! He was to come there with Wickham. But gracious me! I quite forgot. I ought not to have sent a word about it. It was to be such a secret.
If it was to be such a secret, Bessie, not another word on the matter.
Well, oh, but Jane, it explains everything. It must have been him.
What are you talking about?
Mr. Darcy, it must have been him who gave us £5,000 under the condition that Wickham marry Lydia.
But why would Mr. Darcy want to help us in such a way? Is he not a prideful man?
I feel we were completely wrong about him.
I thank you all for your kindness.
I assure you it took great pain to bestow it. I hope you will not mind us visiting often, dear Mamma.
Oh, it's not Lydia.
We shall not mind your visiting, Lydia, but I'm afraid your husband may be forced to stay behind.
Father, you can hardly expect me to be separated from my dear husband.
One day, I'll hope you understand why I laid down this ruling. But for now, all you must know is that my word is final.
Come, Lydia, we must go.
Well, I shall see you perhaps in the next 2 or 3 years. I'll write as often as I can, but you know married women never have much time for writing. My sisters may write to me. They will have nothing else to do.
Well, Miss Bennet, that lady, I suppose, is your mother?
Yes! Yes, madam! What an honor to have you at our abode. Please, might I offer you some tea and refreshments?
No. Miss Bennet, there seems to be a pretty-ish sort of wilderness on the side of your lawn. I would be glad to take a turn in it if you would favor me with your company.
Of course, my lady.
You must know why I have come hither.
Indeed, you are mistaken, madam.
You ought to know I am not to be trifled with. I have heard that you, in all likelihood, would be united with my nephew, my own nephew, Mr. Darcy. Though I know it must be a scandalous falsehood.
Few believe it to be impossible. I wonder why you took the trouble of coming so far.
Mr. Darcy is engaged to my daughter.
Then you should have no concern that he'd make an offer to me.
You two do not belong. My daughter was practically raised to be his wife. I consider her far more accomplished than the present company.
He is a gentleman, and I am a gentleman's daughter. As far as I'm concerned, that makes us equal.
Obstinate, headstrong girl, are you engaged to him?
I am not.
And will you promise me never to enter into such an engagement?
No.
Miss Bennet, I shall not go away until I have the assurance I require.
No, I will not be intimidated into anything so wholly unreasonable.
I am most seriously displeased.
Mr. Bingley is here with that tall, proud man.
It's Mr. Darcy.
Mr. Bingley is quite welcome here, but girls, we have to look presentable.
Yeah.
Go on. Go.
May I speak to Miss Bennet alone, please?
Oh, certainly. We will just be in the other room, won't we, girls?
Miss Bennet.
Father.
Miss Bennet. Since the moment that I first saw you, I have thought you the most beautiful lady that I ever had. Let me begin again, please. Miss Bennet, I have grown to acknowledge you to be both kind and gentle and... No, that isn't right. Miss Bennet.
Yes, Mr. Bingley?
Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?
Yes, Mr. Bingley.
Two of my daughters married! If only I may see the other two betrothed, my life shall be complete!
happy?
Oh, there are great many reasons.
Oh, hush, Mary! Mr. Bingley, you have chosen quite well. Oh, I knew my Jane could not be so beautiful for nothing.
Where has Mr. Darcy gone? He stepped out. Did you not see him? Mr. Darcy! Mr. Darcy?
Miss Elizabeth?
Mr. Darcy, I'm a very selfish creature. I can no longer help thanking you for your unexampled kindness to our poor Lydia on behalf of my family.
If you are to thank me, let it be for yourself alone. You must know I thought only of you. You are too generous to trifle with me. If your feelings are what they were last April, tell me so at once. My affections and wishes are unchanged, but one word from you will silence me forever.
My sentiments have undergone so materially a change as to accept with gratitude and pleasure your present assurances.
I know my aunt came to visit, taught me to hope. Had you been so against me, you would have acknowledged it to the lady openly.
Yes, you know enough of my frankness to believe me capable of that. It appears we have quite the story to tell my family.
I fear they shan't believe it.
Mr. Darcy.
Elizabeth.
Yeah, she knew this was coming. She likes to pretend like she didn't know, but she knew. Oh, I know you didn't. Come here. Woo! Get to market. impossible without her. She came up with the idea years ago to start doing summer plays with our ragtag group of actors. and we said yes. And it has grown. She has learned so much, and she has led this group fearlessly. She has helped all of us grow, and we are all beyond grateful for everything that you have done for us. Like, wasn't this show amazing? We actors all like to think that it was because of us, but it wasn't. It was because of her. Okay, we have some gifts for you.
Kat has something to say first.
Yes.
Okay, after Claire put her heart and soul into this performance, the night before we performed, she came up to us and said, I am giving this show to you. It's not mine anymore. So we would like to give it back to Claire. And as we do so, we are giving it to our Father in heaven, who also gave it to us. So we have some gifts to materialize that.
We have a copy of the script.
What?
With all of the actors signed in it. Different scenes are signed. Everything. Our names on the back.
What?
We have some pineapple aloe vera for you. Then in this box, we have a book of stickers from the Victorian England. We have a crane, origami crane, and we have a copy of Jane Austen's 7 novels that all our actors signed to the front.
Oh, so come back next year for Emma.
We have flowers for you.
Declare!
Thank you, guys.
We're rolling out.
We're
not rolling out.
After the last show, we were all dead. We had no energy. We were all praying for energy. Claire came backstage. She said we did really good, and she was really scared for our next show because it was either going to be our best show or our worst show. And none of us thought it was going to be our best show. About 10, maybe 5 minutes before we go to places, Claire comes back and says that there's standing room only. A wave of excitement swept over us. I don't think I've ever seen any of us that excited, that happy, that grateful. And that whole time I was just sitting there thinking, thank you for answering our prayers, God. So, in light of that, let's all end this with a word of prayer, please. Dear Lord, thank you for all your blessings. We don't deserve it. Thank you for letting us put on the best show of my life. Thank you for letting us bless others. Thank you for blessing us with others. And thank you for blessing us with the energy for this last show. Thank you for giving us contentment no matter how the show went. Thank you for blessing us with an incredible cast and crew. And most of all, thank you for blessing the gospel. The greatest gift you've ever given us that none of us deserve. I pray that you would bless each and every one of us in our life. Amen.
be blocked too, so...